Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So, I have 100%ed Epoch of Pain. And I did make a video about my initial thoughts of the quest itself and also on the Ares boss fight. And this is going to be effectively a follow-up video to how I feel about both the quest and Ares boss fight after I have actually went through. Now, for most part, you will get a hint from my revive use indicator. The pods themselves are fairly simple. I think I used on some parts 1 to 2 revives max. I'd say 7, 8 in the end when I was tired, because I did some of these fights at either very early or very late, and I was a bit tired. I definitely could have focused better, but the parts are definitely doable, borderline revive less, I would say. Some healing here and there, sure, yeah, but much of it was user error or getting reaccustomed to the fights. For instance, like Danny Moonstar, I used a couple of revives, but it's fairly straightforward as long as you know how to dex the level 2, you're kind of fine. Then Annihilus as well, I think I used like a revive or 2 until I got used to the fight again, and once I did, it went fairly smooth. And yeah, for the most part, that was just like reaccustomizing myself to the fights. If I had done more preparation or been more alert, could have definitely went through it itemless. And maybe the exception here would be in this one, because I did use actually some 6-star rank 4 champions for this challenge as well in a couple of lanes. And that's one of the things I will say. One of these nodes is definitely not like the others, and I don't like that it is here. It was kind of fine with the tech and science, but cosmic and skill clear on this lane, I just don't like if I'm completely altering all of these fights and making them entirely different. So the defender takes no damage from any source belonging to the attacker. Whenever the attacker inflicts the defender with one or more non-stun debuffs, the defender loses 2% of their max health as a burst of direct damage, and then there's cooldown of 1 second. It was fine with science again and tech, because the matchups are kind of better, and science obviously is just generally better at applying the debuffs. But I still didn't necessarily love it, because again, it felt like completely different fights rather than the original challenges there, and it completely altered all the fight mechanics. If all 3 of the other nodes added extra difficulty, then again, this just completely changed the rules. Like, we have Hurt Locker here, which I think is fine. It did catch me like once or twice when I didn't use the right special attack in few fights, like against Absman, for instance. It was a big hindrance when using Silk, so Photon ended up doing better than Silk here for me. And I get it. It's just a slightly harder version of these fights. I'm okay with that. This path with Cassie, where you have the fancy footwork, where every 15 seconds you get power drained unless you're dodging back or using special attack. This I kind of like too. It added extra difficulty to the fight. Sometimes I did get my power drained, but when I did pay extra attention to that node, I could bypass it. I could still deal with the fights. Prowler fight was significantly more difficult because there's already a power drain mechanic every 20 seconds, so it was a bit confusing which timer to follow. But again, it was a harder version of those fights, and I was okay with it. And this last one as well, against the ropes, you just kind of needed to make sure not to corner your opponent too much. And you can just use about anyone, but it is still extra difficulty. It kind of lowers your level of aggressiveness, and that's fine. Again, kind of okay with all of that. This one with the debuffs, again, I don't know what's the best way to explain it. Didn't enjoy it. I'll put it like that. I think it doesn't fit in. I think it should have been a different node. But overall, the quest itself, quite good fun. Hard, challenging, liked it. Quite good fun. Now the Ares boss fight. Now we do have quite a lot to talk about this. I did get progressively better at doing it. And after having done Ares the initial time, it felt like borderline hopeless. I genuinely felt like I am not good enough at this game. I was getting hit left, right, and center. My head was smoking, trying to remember everything. And that is where I still do have criticisms of Kabam. Overall, after having done this fight multiple times and getting better at dealing with the special attacks, it was fine. What ruined the fight further was mainly the AI. Honestly, there are few mechanics that I wish Kabam hadn't introduced, or I will explain it a bit later. But mainly afterwards, it was just AI being absolute twat waffle. You know, you can't stun him, so you can't parry and get an opening. In order to get an opening, you need to either intercept him or you need to bait out a heavy attack. In order to bait out a heavy attack, you do take fairly sizable amount of block damage, which is especially costly because towards the end of the fight you can't heal, so you can't really do that. And the AI was just all over the place. The AI issues showed itself especially towards the end, when you have like 1% health, or when you're degening to 1% health, and when you need to intercept him like 50 times, because he gets 99 indestructible charges. You effectively need to, you know, deal with his special attack successfully or intercept him in order to remove those charges. And the AI made it significantly worse of an experience than it should have been. Like, one fight you can go and land in 10 intercepts, another fight he just will not dash in at you, like, ever, and you just die. And stuff like that happened multiple times, where it was up and down, and AI was incredibly inconsistent, and that generally did ruin it. Overall, as a boss fight, I actually started to quite like it. I do think it is more fair-ish design than, for instance, Necropolis boss was, the Collector, or, you know, original Nightmare Collector. I do think that, you know, you can outskill it. My issue with this is that the way it was introduced at end of a difficult piece of content, that it's very hard to get to. It's not like a story content boss where you can clear a path typically with 0 revives and, you know, try and practice it. It wasn't like a solo fight or anything like that. And that's the first thing. The initial learning curve of information, that's just understanding what he does, is immense due to the huge amount of abilities he does. And it genuinely felt like a lot of these abilities could have been added on to him later on, because he's meant to be a reoccurring type of boss, but there was just an incredible amount of extra on top of everything. For instance, he changes his special attack animation speed in every phase. That is something that could have been easily added in later. For instance, the special attack mixing, where it's completely random which special attacks he uses. For the first time we fight him, they could have made it more structured. It's going to be level 1, level 2, and then there's going to be some sort of HUD or a call or something. And then, when you bring him in for the next piece of content, remove that. Once we have actually kind of gotten the basics down special attacks. Because currently, the only way to learn this fight is through mountains of revives, which genuinely feels underhanded. Like, most people that do Ares the first time use 20 to 30 revives, then the second time, let's say 15 to something revives, and then the third time slightly less. And that feels like Kabam leaves you no other chance with but to reach in your pocket and just throw revives for the generous opportunity to learn. Which, again, is not what I would classify as good design in a quest or a good model for it. And genuinely, the fight itself afterwards got quite enjoyable. Like, once you actually remember the dodge, parry, parry, light, dodge, or parry, parry, light, dodge, dodge, up. Once you have memorized those, and once you kind of get a bit better hang of dexing that, yeah, it's not as bad. You know, it's doable fight. He'll revive here and there, but towards the end of it, basically I got him down like to the final phase with like a 1 team revive or something. And then in the final phase I had to throw more revives at him because obviously the AI is just ridiculously bad. But you know, it felt more manageable. But I do think for vast majority of the players, and I'm talking about like 90+% of the players that will attempt this piece of content, it is going to be a revive fest. Because you do need to pay enormous amount of attention. You do need to memorize enormous amount of information, and you do need your brain and body to speak to each other incredibly quick. Which at this point in the game, I'm genuinely thinking is going to be far the physical capability of the players. Because we do have somebody like MSD or, you know, another handful of, you know, insanely skilled players that process the information fast and, you know, move accordingly. This is a type of boss that is made for like 1% or maybe 5% of the players who will ever attempt this content and who are in a position to attempt it. Vast majority of the people are just gonna get their butt whooped by Ares countless times until they revive through it. Because, you know, Kabam obviously added the clever thing is if you spam infinite revives, your damage goes up and it becomes easier to finish him off. And that is how most people are gonna get through him, in my opinion. There's going to be, you know, your typical, let's say, tier 1 Alliance War Masters level players and, you know, C6 and C5 Polygons level players who will get better at dealing with Ares, just like I did, just like a bunch of my mods did. You know what I'm saying? Eventually, you know, I got him down in like 9 revives or something. Yeah, there will be that group. There's going to be a very, very large portion of players who, despite their best attempts, just end up dumping a lot of revives. So that generally, again, causes me to question whether this was the way to introduce the boss. If he's meant to be a reoccurring endgame boss, a lot of those things could have been added on. And the issue of Ares boss is just exacerbated by the current gameplay mechanic issues. When your, you know, intercept just randomly gets smacked in the face when intercept should land. Because that is a thing now, where opponent just randomly glides through your medium attack or your light attack and hits you in the face. Ares pulled off some wild intercepts on me. As well as the AI just going insanely passive at times and stuff like that. All of those issues are making this boss significantly more hateable than he should be. And then, yeah, a bunch of those abilities that were thrown in his kit already felt like they could have been added later on once people already kind of know how to fight him. So that is my thoughts. Overall, if you are attempting this challenge, the difficulty level of fighting him goes from up here to slowly lower. It becomes easier over time if you are investing a ton of effort in it, trying to remember all the combos, trying to recognize the special attacks, and, you know, being on your top game. But despite it all, like, I don't think there's just any feasible way, regardless of how skilled you are, unless you, like, you know, up there, that people will be getting through him with like no revives and stuff like that. Like, obviously, if you fight him, like, I don't know, purposely for like 500 times and stuff, then, you know, eventually you might. But I don't know. This is one of those things where after I have done it, towards the end of it, I liked fighting him. So I want to be honest about that. But as a boss and the way he's introduced, again, it feels very underhanded and over the top. And I don't think it's good for the game or for Kabam or so on and so forth. Because the end result is like, yeah, Kabam, you know, made a significant dent in my stash. Like, from me personally, that didn't get any units. I didn't purchase anything in order to clear it. I just, you know, cleared out a portion of my stash. And it could have been better experience than it was. But there you go. Let me know what you guys think. But yeah, it is, you know, also time to be fair. I started enjoying the Ares fights towards that. But a lot of things surrounding how he was introduced, the extra abilities let in, the AI, still makes me feel bitter about the experience to a degree at the very least. And I suspect that there will be a lot more people who are a lot more bitter than I am of the design. So, I'd love to hear your thoughts too. Bye-bye. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about